Digitalization, innovation, technology, digital twins, these were some of the key words I kept hearing through the day here in Munich at Siemens Innovation Day 2017, because this is what Siemens' core focus now is. And we are talking big numbers. 5.2 billion euros is the kind of business the digital space did for Siemens. It's growing at 20% plus growth rate on an annual basis, and they intend to stay at that pace. 5.6 billion euros is the kind of investment the company is making only in research and development, and a large part of that flows into the digital business. And when we talk of India in this entire big sphere of digitalization, it did feature as a country with huge potential of growth.
The obviously digital factory has gotten the lion's share of the R&D investment, and it pays off. We're now growing competition with increasing margins, and we continue to heavily invest for future revenue and profit, and thus also value growth.
We increased the number of connected assets by 25% to 1 million. We're heading for 1.25 million by the end of this fiscal year 18. We doubled the number of customers which are using our digital offerings to 2,900. And we increased the number of digital offerings which we have to 250. 150 are in the pipeline.
You spoke about some very impressive technology on the digital side and great growth that you're seeing. What part of that growth would be coming from emerging markets in countries like that of India? And in terms of opportunities in digital space, particularly for a market like India, where do you think Siemens stands?
And both of us have also board members of Siemens India for a long time. On a general note, we believe, obviously, India being one of the single biggest potential economies in the world for growth. And we also believe that this time it's sort of now or never. Prime Minister Modi has done a lot of great things, probably not as much as he was trying to achieve, but more than most people thought. So very encouraging on that one. And if you look at economic growth rates, they are obviously just about like China, 6.8 is what China said, 7.2 could be India, if not more. So all good, but I think in order to really embrace the opportunity and the potential of this continent, it's not a continent, it's a continent, there's got to be infrastructure built. There's got to be a reliable, affordable, sustainable energy system. There's got to be roads and mobility to bring people and goods to where they belong to. Otherwise, we never get out of inflationary pressure if price increases in agriculture are not because of demand, but because of inefficiency, because the goods are rotting on the field and are not being brought to the cities that are being needed. So you need the best trains in the world which can transport people and goods. Guess who builds that train? Then India has a very unique opportunity because it has so much software capabilities already. So if we bring, let's say, industry manufacturing 1.0, where they are today on average, maybe to 2 and 3, 4.0 is already waiting because of the capabilities of software and IT and e-commerce in the country. So very promising, very much in focus of our business strategy, and there is definitely more to come in India as what we see today.
Headquarters, we spoke to the top brass of Siemens to understand where does India feature in their larger scheme of things and what potential does it hold as far as growth is concerned. Well, here in Munich at Siemens Innovation Day, I am with the person, the man who everyone wants to talk to, the Chief Technology Officer of Siemens AG, Roland Busch. Thank you so much, Busch, for speaking with CNBC TV18. First up, we had seen globally orders slowing down across markets. How big is that a challenge still in the global markets, and how is Siemens positioning?
The global market is a mixed picture, I have to say. There are some markets which are doing okay. I think in the United States you see decent growth, Europe too. also driven, in the case of Germany, very much by export. India is extremely doing well. It's extremely doing well. China just increased their guidance for the GDP growth. But then you have other areas which are held back a little bit by political issues. So it's a mixed area. It's mixed also in the business we are in metals mining. We have really we suffered a long time for really weak markets.
Yeah.
They're picking up again. We see that, by the way, in India too. And the power generation market is under pressure. This is a mix between, let's say, a mix between decoupling of energy consumption from the GDP growth. So we see efficiency kicking in. By the way, we are driving that too. Number two is the renewables. Prices are falling down rapidly in wind power, onshore, offshore, but photovoltaics, which puts pressure on the power generation market. In the past, maybe there were a lot of capacities added. So this mixture is really giving a lot of headwind to the market. But if you're sitting on the right spots, you still can enjoy some growth.
If you talk of the global pecking order for Siemens and how you see in terms of opportunity and in terms of growth, where does India stack up?
So, I mean, India, I would still say, an emerging market. And these emerging markets, they have something in common. And this is the pattern how they develop. So first step is energy. Without energy, you don't develop. Secondly is infrastructure. Because without infrastructure, you cannot build upon your industries. Nobody would invest in industries, manufacturing industries, if there's no energy and infrastructure. And then the third wave is really about creating a better life, creating better cities, smart cities, or improving the healthcare system. So India is so big. I think you are working on these waves concurrently. But still, there's a lot of investments needed in the energy or in the infrastructure area. So here we see the positive ones.
Right, you've been on the board for the India business
Yes.
as well. How have you seen things change, let's say, in the last few years? Some time ago, we used to talk about policy paralysis. Do you think now the Indian business environment is much more easier to do business in the verticals that you operate in?
Yeah, I think it does, definitely. Your government and your Prime Minister, they are pushing the right bottoms in terms of really, there's one target, for example, to climb up in the list of the countries where it's easy to do business with.
Yeah.
Very good spot, very good focus. You're climbing up that ladder. We see that some tenders which were hanging around for many, many years, in the mobility area, for example, they are pushed through now. They're going to the market, they aren't going to be tendered. We see that, for example, the high-speed connections you're working on. So a lot of things are going on, which gives me a clear signal that this is the right way how you go, and you have to. This is one of the big blocking points which we saw in the past, which was hindering India from developing faster.
But you spoke about a few orders which were stuck, which are now coming in, but we still see that the private investment has not picked up in the Indian market. Most of the orders that you or your competitors are getting are from the public sector units. Where do you think the challenge still lies and what needs to be done?
I think it's a little bit of creating trust that it's going the right direction. You cannot expect this change from one day to the other. I mean, there are plenty of opportunities. If money surges its way on a global scale,
Absolutely.
so you have to compete with others too. And so picking up and creating trust takes a little bit of time. I bet the picture will change. If we sit here in maybe 2 years from now, you wouldn't ask this question.
Right. Let's talk about digital, which is something that you're very passionate about. How are you positioning India on the digital map for Siemens? What would be India's digital strategy for Siemens?
Short answer would be the full 9 yards. I don't believe that we can drop any of our business and say they come later. Why I'm saying that? Because, talking about manufacturing industries, you're starting on a low level. But sometimes it's an advantage that you can say you can have a kind of a sometimes greenfield approach, but a low-level automation approach. So automating, putting it to the next level, you have less legacy systems which you have to compete with. So you can really start rolling in new technologies quickly. The only thing would be pick the right sequence and the right pace in order to do that.
You spoke about increasing R&D investments globally. It's a huge target that you've set out for in terms of investing in technology, in digitization. What part of that or what percentage of that comes to India and what is the new thing that you would be looking at doing in India as far as R&D is concerned?
So we have already a very strong base. I mean, for corporate technology, for example, we have a very, very strong foothold in India. Most of our software engineers, which are working on different software platforms all around the world, they are sitting in India. Very good people. They're very productive, delivering high-quality software. So we are working on that. Also, MindSphere, parts of MindSphere. This is a distributed development. Parts of MindSphere sits also in India. But I can also imagine that along with our local customers and the competence we have there, that we are also coming back to our application centers, that we jointly work with Indian people to really design their applications for the market.
What would be the timeline that you would have kept for, I'm sure there would be milestones, 2 years, 4 year, 5 year timelines. Which is the nearest milestone that you want to achieve? What would that be in India?
In the way where business is changing so fast. So my milestone would be really to pick we have some key projects on our list.
What could those be?
For example, a locomotive tender which is coming out, or commuter trains tender. We have some projects in the infrastructure space, so signaling. We won some, we had a good year, but there's more to come. Another one would be on your 100 smart cities, where we're working on hard in order to really help these smart cities to develop fast.
Okay, how big is an opportunity of the bullet train for you in India?
Well, it's a big one because we believe.
Looking forward to it?
We are looking forward to it. We are working on our concept, it's funded also by our government and partners. So we're not alone. We have partners coming from Germany, Europe. We are working on a concept which is allowing you to, once you have the high-speed infrastructure, to use it in a mixed mode, so that not only high-speed trains but also maybe cargo trains are using it at night, for example, when you don't have that heavy traffic, which gives you much better economics for the investments. And we are ready to go forward. Okay.
If you talk on the renewable energy space, which is the other big area where you operate and where there is a lot of opportunity as far as India is concerned, what is the kind of growth that you are seeing in that business in India?
So we see a lot of growth in India. This is one of the big wind markets we are looking into. It's a market which is also driven by a tremendous cost down. There's a challenging market for us, we know that. So there's a reason why we are localized there. But it's a market where it has a huge opportunities, the size of the country, also the opportunities to put some renewables where you don't have such a good grid expansion. We talk about microgrids or nanogrids where you have less grid investments, but still you can produce energy decentralized, and with a local grid you can power areas very nicely. So that's what we are looking for, and again, which we are really ready to tap into this.
But the wind power sector had seen some bit of challenges in the recent past in India. How are you coping with that in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of pricing?
Yeah, I think we have to do our homeworks. Having the right portfolio which you need with the right costs, engaging local suppliers there too, in order to get the cost down, also logistics costs, not only material but also logistics costs, and we are working on it.
Just as a last question, from your growth perspective, you spoke about $5.2 billion of growth in the digital revenues in your digital space. What part of that would be coming from emerging markets like that of India? And where do you think it will go?
Actually, we don't break that down into this. What is emerging and non-emerging? It's difficult to sequence it. So therefore, what we say is we want to grow this above the market growth. We believe the market growth is 8%. It's a blend, by the way, of digital services and software business.
Right.
And we are growing. This year we grew by 20%. If you would take out the Mentor Graphics acquisition, would still be 11% growth rate. And we want to continue this momentum, growing double-digit in this market.
Would you see India growing at the same pace?
I hope a little bit faster.
A little bit faster, you would say?
Yes.
And would the investment also be at the same pace or a little bit faster than the rest of the country?
Let's see. It depends on the opportunities. But if the Indian market, if I'm not mistaken, our market at least grew by 7%, so the momentum is higher. Digital therein normally is a little bit higher than that. So therefore, I hope that we have a much better growth rate than in India than in the other places.